Welcome to this meeting of Council. The meeting will be live streamed and recorded, and the voices and images of those participating in the meeting may be captured as part of this recording. Indigo Shire acknowledges the original custodians of these lands. The people of the rivers and the hills have walked these lands for thousands of years as well as today, and we pay respect to the elders of the past and present. As councillors, we have all taken an oath to carry out our duties in the best interests of the people of Indigo Shire and to do this in a fair and impartial manner. We are all committed to exercising the council's powers and functions to the best of our skills and judgment. Are there any apologies and leaves of absence? No. And before we go any further, we have a new councillor in the room tonight, Councillor Sue Gold. And we'd just like to give you the opportunity to introduce yourselves, and we'd like to make you welcome here tonight. So Sue, if you'd like to tell us a bit about yourself.
Thank you so much, and thank you to everybody in the room that's been incredibly generous and warm in welcoming me. I'm surprised and thrilled to have, on account back, become a councillor. So I appreciate there's only 12 months left in this session, but I shall be doing my darndest to make the most of it. And for people in community, I know quite a few across this shire with my work, both with business and particularly small business and community groups. So I'm looking forward to doing some travels around with some of my fellow councillors into their sort of patch and getting to know people with a different hat on and looking at what business and community aspire. And hope that council can help them with. And I look forward to a productive 12 months. So thank you.
Thank you, Sue, and thank you for your contributions so far. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? None. Now move to open forum. CEO, are there any questions for open forum tonight?
No, Madam Mayor.
Community and council achievements. Do we have any? Item 7 is condolences. Councillor Horn, you have a condolence motion?
Yes, I do. The people of Rutherglen are mourning the loss of a much loved and highly respected community member who passed away on the 3rd of August at the grand age of 96. Mrs. Pat Robinson crammed a great deal into the more than 30 years she lived in Rutherglen after relocating with her family from suburban Melbourne. As a very capable treasurer and willing participant in club activities, Pat was a valued member of the Rutherglen Probus Club, the Corowa and New South Wales Ladies Probus Group, and also Rutherglen Zarasel sub-branch Ladies Auxiliary and the Slimmers Club. And one of Pat's most passionate interests was helping others to develop their skills and enjoyment of art and creativity. This saw her establish and run the Rutherglen and Districts Art Society that provided not only classes but also scholarships and an outlet for the sale of works. The society staged the highly regarded Rutherglen Art Show that attracted entries from right across the country for 26 years. It was quite a remarkable achievement. And the many, many hours Pat put in as a volunteer at the Rutherglen Information Centre and her commitment to her community work was recognised when she was named not only the Rutherglen Citizen of the Year, but then a couple of years later as Indigo Shire Citizen of the Year. She's very fondly remembered by all those who knew her, and I would ask that a letter under seal be sent to her family.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. CEO, that's noted that a letter will be sent to her family. Councillor Gaffney also wanted to mention another condolence.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to raise the passing of a former mayor of Wodonga Council, Councillor John Watson. John was first elected in 1997 to the Wodonga Council and returned to council in 2012. John always did the best for his community, and he was always known as a man of honesty and high integrity.
Thank you, Councillor Gaffney. CEO, did you want to make some comments about John Watson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'm very sad I guess not surprised to hear of the passing of John, knowing how unwell he was, but very sad to hear of that. As you know, I've come from a Wodonga Council background. I worked with John for together with him as a councillor, probably nearly 6 years, 5.5 years or so. John was a real gentleman, and I'll say gentleman, calm, approachable, probably call him the peacemaker, very community minded, and he was always the one that would have the Santa Claus hats on, the Santa Claus ties on, and that sort of stuff at the December council meetings. John lost his wife, Christine, in 2017, and she was in her late 50s, also to cancer. John now has passed away at a young age in his early 60s. And so I'd acknowledge his three boys, their three boys, George, Digby and Dougal. Unfortunately now, those three boys and their families have lost both their parents, and they should have grown old together and enjoyed their grandchildren, but sadly it won't be the case.
Thank you. So as a neighbouring council, we just wanted to acknowledge John Watson and pay our condolences. We'll now move on to item 8, confirmation of minutes from the previous meetings. The recommendation is that the following minutes be confirmed. 1, minutes of the council meeting held on the 25th of July 2023 as published on council's website, and 2, confidential minutes of the council meeting held on the 25th of July 2023 as provided to councillors under separate cover. To have someone to move that motion? Moved Councillor Gaffney, seconded Councillor Tyson. Councillor Gaffney, did you want to speak to the motion? Councillor Tyson? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? You can still vote on the minutes. Carried unanimously. Item 9 is business arising from the previous minutes. So there was questions from 2 questioners on that night. However, neither of them were present, but responses to those questions have been provided in the agenda tonight.
Could I speak to those business arising? The previous meeting?
Yes, Councillor Shepherd.
Yeah, so just in terms of the question from Tiffany, I think that's a question on many locals' lips about the indefinite closure of the Gorge Road. And I see here that they're waiting for an engineer's report and recommendations. I'm just hoping to somehow flag another update at the next council meeting, if that could happen, because I think we need to find out what's happening with that Gorge walk and drive.
So CEO, you'll take that on board to provide an update at the next council meeting. Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Item 10 is petitions, and there are none. We move to item 11, planning and corporate services. Item 11.1 is the July 2023 finance report. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council accepts the July 2023 finance report. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Gaffney, seconded Councillor Tyson. Councillor Gaffney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council income is 223,000 unfavourable on a year-to-date basis compared to the current budget of 2023-2024. The reasons for that is contract payments and higher than budgeted assets and public liability insurance costs. Council's cash position at the end of July 2023 was 11.4 million compared to the same period last year when it was 15.92 million. Almost all of that money has been spent on the completion of capital works. Regarding the environment implications of the motion of Councillor Tyson in May 2017, it was interesting that the Commonwealth Bank loan interest rates on electric vehicles is 5.49% compared to 7.99% for petrol vehicles.
Councillor Tyson, would you like to speak as seconder?
No, just knocked a note that Councillor Gaffney's comments and remarks regarding this were correct. Thank you.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gaffney, I'll return to you as the mover. Would you like to sum up? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 12 is Community and Economic Development, and item 12.1 is the Victorian Goldfields World Heritage Listing Bid MOU. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 endorses the Memorandum of Understanding between Indigo Shire Council and the Victorian Goldfields World Heritage Listing Bid stakeholders. 2, authorises the CEO to sign the Memorandum of Understanding for and on behalf of Indigo Shire Council. And 3, commit to participating in the Victorian Goldfields UNESCO bid. Do I have somebody to move that motion? Moved Councillor Croucher, seconded Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Croucher.
Yes, what a wonderful opportunity for our Shire to participate in the Victorian Goldfields World Heritage Listing Bid process. Indeed, Indigo Shire has many significant sites which showcase our historic buildings, precincts and landscape, sites that we who live in Indigo Shire should be proud to show the world. With this in mind, let's endorse the MOU between the Indigo Shire Council and the Victorian Goldfields World Heritage Listing Bid stakeholders.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yeah, this was an interesting thing that came upon us on the 4th of July when we had an interesting visitation from the Bendigo Ballarat Shire and speaking to us about the opportunity for us to be included in this bid for UNESCO World Heritage Listing. And it was a bit out of the blue, really. The impression I got was that they've been working on this since the 1980s, which is a long time. And when Mr. Gamble from the UK, the heritage consultant, came over and toured Victoria, he said this bid is going to be so much stronger if you include this area, because this Beechworth Indigo Shire area is just rich, heritage rich with gold stories. So I think it's really something we're very lucky to be included in it at the last minute, along with the 13 other councils that are part of this bid. And I'm really one of the things I'm really happy with our reconciliation action plan. I think we're really starting to look differently in the way we move forward on these sort of projects, and the fact that we've already gone out to our Indigenous community and spoken to them first before we've come here tonight, to just ensure that they feel that they're part of this process and that their stories and their heritage will be included in this, I think is an important part of this project. And I'd just like to congratulate really our staff on starting to use a different way of approaching these projects. And I do really think that's a reflection on our RAP process. Yeah, there's huge economic benefits, of course, that's going to come out of this. And I think it's a very exciting possibility, and fingers crossed that it will come into fruition.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gaffney.
Indigo Shire Council was approached by the cities of Bendigo and Ballarat to be part of the consortium for this bid. I just think that we're heritage focused. It's been said that we should be just roads, rates and rubbish. And this is not what this council's about, although they're very important. It was also mentioned in the media that Indigo Shire Council was cutting back in funding for the Golden Horseshoes Festival in Beechworth. I'd just like to comment that that is not correct.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Tyson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to comment that this is part of the World Heritage Listing is the fact that this is the best representation of the 1800s gold rush in the world, even better than California and many of the other countries that were involved in that phenomenon that had people literally spreading all through the world trying to find gold. And I'd like to say how fortunate we are that we've been able to participate in this. Thank you.
Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Horn.
I was just intrigued by a little snippet in this presentation. It's talking about in respect of the Victorian Goldfield This relates to pre-European settlement and displacement of traditional lands, the pastoral expansion, the gold era, the creation of, and this is the part that I found interesting, upside down country. I found that really, really interesting. I don't quite know what they're talking about there, because it goes on to say about the building of cities and towns, agricultural development. So I presume it's that whole world that's happening under the ground.
Thank you, councillor Horn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gold.
I'd just like to say how exciting I think this is. I think it's an enormous opportunity. And also just really conscious that it's a very long process. And so I think the reference to our predecessors been working on this whole bid for 20, 40 years is extraordinary. I really do hope that we're at the pointy end now and see this come to fruition within a couple of years, perhaps. But I think also it's exciting, but we have to be in it somewhat for the long game. And I think that will give us some really wonderful time to do some planning around the implications and what this means for the Shire and our neighbours as a whole. So there's some really good planning to underpin our ability to take advantage of this listing if we get that far.
Thank you, councillor Gold. I'd echo lots of the sentiment. It's really pleasing to hear councillors reflecting on this opportunity, and certainly with overwhelming support. I think it's important, as councillor Gaffney said, that we hold up the fact that we're really proud of our heritage, and what better way to do that than to develop this memorandum of understanding for a World Heritage listing bid. So I'm very pleased that we've got this opportunity, and what a great opportunity for an area that we know that our communities appreciate so well, for the world to be able to appreciate it as well. Councillor Croucher, I'll go back to you if you'd like to sum up.
Yes, look, it's all been said. Wonderful, exciting opportunities in the future, and we'll certainly be waiting for it with excitement.
I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 13 is infrastructure services, and item 13.1 is the Chiltern Tennis Courts redevelopment. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council awards contract number 2223/030-02 Chiltern Tennis Courts redevelopment to Idwala Proprietary Limited for the lump sum of $464,000 and $464,060.40 excluding GST. 2, authorises the CEO to execute the contract documentation, and 3, authorises the CEO, the financial delegation, to approve contract variations up to a total of 10% of the signed contract value. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved councillor Tyson. Seconded councillor Croucher. Councillor Tyson.
Thank you. What a great opportunity for the Chiltern community. The current courts are a little on the sad side, and I personally have had to remark them. So it'll be fantastic to see council continuing its investment in our communities, and especially in tennis. We're doing very well there. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Tyson. Councillor Croucher.
Having played the wonderful game of tennis and the Keywan District champion in 1978, and aware of its stature as a sport in Australian sporting history, it is important that communities such as Chiltern have tennis courts in good condition and other essentials such as inexpensive lighting and decent surrounds. This, of course, would attract new members and allow current members to play the game with excellent conditions. Therefore, I'd like to endorse the recommendation for Dwala Proprietary Limited to commence work on this important development for the people of Chiltern.
Thank you, councillor Croucher. Would any other councillor like to make a comment? Councillor Gaffney.
The total cost was $464,000. It's good that we got a grant of $300,000 from the state government. The Chiltern Tennis Club put in $10,000 and Indigo Shire Council put in $166,000. I'd just like to say that the successful tenderer did a magnificent job at the Waggunya Tennis and Netball courts and also the Beechworth tennis courts. They're a very dependable company.
Thank you, councillor Gaffney. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I'll go back to you, councillor Tyson. Would you like to sum up?
Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate everyone's thoughts here. It's great to see another asset going into our communities that are going to future-proof them. Thank you.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Hopefully the next Ash Barty comes from Chiltern. Moving to item 13.2, the July Capital Works Report. The item is for information. The recommendation is that council notes the July Capital Works Report and year-to-date progress in the delivery of the Capital Works program. Do I have somebody to move that motion? Moved councillor Shepherd, seconded councillor Croucher. Councillor Shepherd.
So this is a nearly $20 million budgeted capital works program that we've just started for this financial year. And one of the first cabs off the rank was the Chiltern Community Hub opening, which was, I think, is really starting to settle into that landscape. People are using it, they're loving it. I really enjoyed visiting for the opening. It was packed. I was listening to some young people say they're going to go there and do their homework there. So congratulations. It's one of the major projects that since I've been on council, and to have that up and going and looking beautiful. Congratulations to your department. It's great to see. And then the Chiltern Caravan Park redevelopment of the facilities, and of course the Kiwa Bowling Club, the installation of the synthetic playing surface. And I'd also like to say the Yakandanda community is loving having the toilets at Isaacs Park open. And I assume when it's approved, the Changing Places toilet there is going to be a great asset to the community. So that's some great things happening. But I do note that there's in the commentary the talk of the seasonal wintry conditions are starting to restrict the achievement of many works, and we know that with the roads, with lots of complaints about the roads at the moment. But the weather is holding us up on a lot of that. Industry shortage, which has been happening now for a number of years, with challenges around project cost overrun. And some things may need to be deferred in the capital budget to facilitate these overruns. So that's sad to hear, but the reality of this space in terms of infrastructure. I do note, though, that we have an extra $616,313 as Part B component of the roads, local roads and community infrastructure funding program, which in September we'll hear where that funding is going to be spent. So that's exciting. So thank you.
Councillor Crouch, would you like to speak as second?
I'd just like to endorse everything that Councillor Shepherd said. And one thing that I did note with the hub and the bowling club and the Changing Places, it's great to see these exciting happenings all throughout the Shire. We're all getting our cut of the cake, which is really great to see.
Thank you, councillor Croucher. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd, I'll go back to you as the mover. Would you like to sum up? No? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14 is executive management, and item 14.1 is the swearing in of councillors. The item is for information, and the recommendation is that council notes that in accordance with section 32 of the Local Government Act 2020, Councillor Sue Gold took an affirmation of office on the 14th of August 2023. Could I have somebody to move that? Moved councillor Shepherd, seconded councillor Tysell. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak to that?
I'm glad you took the affirmation, Councillor Gold, and congratulations. It's great to have you here and look forward to, I know it's a year, but perhaps we can entice you for another 4 years after that. So yeah, it'll be great having Sue on board. So I endorse his recommendation.
Thank you, councillor Shepherd. Councillor Tysell, would you like to speak to the recommendation?
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate those comments and say welcome on board. And a year is still a long time. Thank you.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Before I go back to Councillor Shepherd as the mover, I'd just again like to welcome you. We're really pleased to have you on board and looking forward to your many contributions over this next time. And I hope that you find that it's a really supportive group of councillors and a great organisation that you have ready to support whatever priorities you've got over the next 12 months. Councillor Shepherd, I'll go back to you as the mover. Would you like to sum up? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Move to item 14.2, the council expense and resources policy. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council adopts the reviewed council expense and resources policy for 2023. Can I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Shepherd, seconded Councillor Tyson. Councillor Shepherd.
So the draft policy was endorsed by council at the June meeting, and it's been out for public scrutiny, and we haven't had any public submissions. However, the page was visited 48 times and the draft policy was downloaded 11 times, indicating an interest from the community. And of course, as we're using ratepayers' money, of course, people are wanting to know what it's being spent on. I think this particular policy goes into more detail, things that were like newspaper subscriptions and things that were, were just as incidentals. Everything is there to be viewed. I'd just like to read this from the Chief Municipal Inspector speaking on council expenses and allowances. Council expenses and claims for reimbursement often attract public attention. Because councils are publicly funded, their systems for managing expenditure are subject to particular scrutiny. The integrity and transparency of those systems are critical for maintaining public confidence in the important work of local government. And I think this policy very clearly states all the different ways that the councillors are supported in their role.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Tyson, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yeah, just reiterate what Councillor Shepherd had to say, and just this is just moving forward. It basically is identifying that costs have changed and the requirements of councillors have changed of that. Thank you.
Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Horn.
I have a suggestion under the area of review in that section. The change is added in an extra trigger for review. And in the comments it says a review should follow any adverse finding by a regulatory body. I would like to see added into that, to make that statement, a review should follow any adverse finding by a regulatory body or a regulatory or advisory body, to cover situations like the recent release of the community satisfaction report, where we actually have an occasion to use the information to
Point of
review
order,
our
Madam Mayor.
systems.
What's the point of order, councillor?
I think that the councillor is referring to item 14.4. And we're still on item 14.2.
Am I in the wrong one, am I? 14.2?
That's page 35.
Page 35?
So
I thought that you were talking to the public transparency policy, not the councillor expense policy.
Oh, yeah. Well, that probably, they look very similar, don't they? Yes, well, either of all of those.
So, councillor, are we clear on which policy we're referring to? Are we, because at the moment we're discussing the councillor expense and resources policy,
Yes,
which is item 14.2.
I think you're probably right.
Okay.
Councillor. Yes, I think so.
So did you have any further comments to
I'd
make?
just like to say with that point of order that it's very easily done because there's 3 different policies all in a row.
They all look very similar.
Any further comments about the council expense and resources policy, councillor Horn?
No, I haven't.
Councillor Croucher.
Look, I think the conclusion to this report really sums this up as far as I am concerned. And it says the changes to the policy provide for a more accurate, and transparent account of expenses and resources available to councillors and support councillors to use these resources to support their roles. That sums it up for me.
Thank you, councillor Croucher. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll go back to councillor Shepherd as the mover. Would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.3 is public interest disclosures. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 endorses the reviewed public interest disclosure policy 2023 for public exhibition for a period of 30 days. And 2 notes that the reviewed public interest disclosure policy 2023 is intended to replace the current public interest disclosure whistleblower policy. Do I have somebody to move that motion? Moved councillor Shepherd, seconded councillor Croucher. Councillor Shepherd.
So this policy outlines the way in which any individual, including members of the public, staff and councillors, can disclose information which enables the prevention of fraud and corruption. So this policy outlines what is a public interest disclosure, who can make a disclosure and to whom, what council does if it receives a disclosure, how council will assess a public interest disclosure, and what protections does the Public Interest Disclosures Act provide, and what procedures council has in place. Strong, transparent governance practices shape community confidence in the organisation. This is one visible example to the community of how council provides for good governance practices and encourages, and I'd like to use that word encourages, the calling out of inappropriate conduct whilst protecting the disclosure.
Thank you, councillor Shepherd. Councillor Crouch, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yes, look, I'll just read from the report again, because again, it sold me. Adopting this updated policy is one demonstration of council's commitment to transparency and governance and accountability in its administrative and management practices, and supports the making of disclosure that may reveal improper conduct.
Thank you, councillor Croucher. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No, councillor Shepherd, I'll go back to you as the mover. Would you like to sum up?
Yes, if I could just remind the community that this is going out for 30 days to the community for exhibition. So if they would like to comment, that we invite their scrutiny and their comment.
Thank you, councillor Shepherd. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.4 is the review of the public transparency policy. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 endorses the reviewed public transparency policy 2023 for public exhibition for a period of 30 days. And 2 notes that the reviewed public transparency policy is intended to replace the current confidentiality policy when it returns for council decision. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved councillor Teisel, seconded councillor Croucher. Councillor Teisel.
Yeah, once again, this is going out for community consideration, and I really encourage the community, as we do have a lot of input throughout the year about transparency, to be involved in this, and I'd really enjoy to see their commentary on it.
Councillor Croucher.
Again, I'll read from the report, because this is how I understand it very, very much so. The updated policy clearly outlines council's commitment to managing confidential information appropriately in balance with its public transparency obligations. That's fairly clear to me.
Thank you, councillor Croucher. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Horn.
Well, I can't find that part that I was looking to add that phrase to, unfortunately. Can you help me out there, councillor? I beg your pardon? All right. Well, I don't have that in front of me.
Given that the policy is going out for public exhibition for 30 days, this is not your last opportunity to give that feedback. So you can do it tonight, but if there's also opportunity over the next 30 days. This isn't the final adopted version. So
No,
if you'd like to note that might be your feedback over the next month, or you can do it tonight. That's totally up to you.
Well, I would like to add it in this evening if possible.
Okay, so if you can direct us to what you're talking about, Councillor Horn.
It's in a. Sharon. I thought it was in a similar table to that, but I saw it. No, well, look, rather than taking up time now, I'll hold it over until that next time.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Horn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd.
If I could just say, one of the things I've noted the longest I've been on council is with the change of the Act is how less things are able to be confidential in council. They really are very much stipulated what can and can't be confidential, and most things that we do are available for the community's viewing and for them to understand it and hear. So it really is starting to be that there's only really those things that step on other people's toes in terms of their privacy and anything to do with tenders and anything to do with business tenders. So there's not very much left that's confidential. So I just would, and it's great to see that this policy lays that out.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Gaffney.
I'd just like to note that the scope of the policy applies to councillors, council officers, volunteers and contractors to council.
Thank you, Councillor Gaffney. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll go back to Councillor Tyson. Would you like to sum up?
No, yes, it's fantastic to see the variations just in this room. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can get back from the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.5 is advisory committee minutes. The item is for information. The recommendation is that council notes that no advisory committee minutes are reported this month and no minutes are attached for council decision. Do I have somebody? Oh, sorry, that doesn't need a mover. Thank you, CEO. Item 14.6 is informal meetings of councillors' records. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council accepts the attached informal meetings of councillors' records. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Gaffney, seconded Councillor Croucher. Councillor Gaffney, did you want to speak to it? Councillor Croucher, would you like to speak? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.7 is contracts awarded under Chief Executive Officer delegation for July 2023. The item is for information. There were no contracts awarded during this period. Item 15 is notices of motion, and item 15.1 is a notice of motion for a community forum in Waganya. The motion is that council requires the CEO to arrange a community forum in Waganya as requested by the Waganya Progress Association and members of the Waganya community in either October or November 2023 to discuss a number of issues affecting the community. Councillor Gaffney, would you like to move that motion as it's your notice of motion?
I'd like to move that, Madam Mayor.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Horn, you'd like to second. Councillor Gaffney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the 7th of August, I attended and chaired the Waganya Progress Association AGM. At that meeting, a letter was tabled outlining that council would not be holding a community forum for a variety of reasons. Adding that when the new council was elected, they would be visiting every community in the Shire. Waiting until 2025 for that to happen at Waganya is too late. The 2023 Community Satisfaction Survey showed that Indigo Shire Council had dropped 6% from 2022. Council statewide had dropped 3% and small rural shires 3%. The overview of the Indigo survey states current perceptions of councils' overall performance were at a 10-year low. Past performance shows that council can do better. We need to go out to our communities and not to wait for them to come to us. The Waganya Progress Associations and members of the Waganya community have requested council hold a community forum at Waggunya to discuss a number of matters affecting them as soon as we are able to attend. I'd like to refer to the Community Engagement Policy of Indigo Shire 2021. Part 2 of the objectives of the policy is to strengthen relationships and trust between council, the community and stakeholders through collaborations, partnerships and new ways to involve the community. Our engagement approach as part of that policy talks about examples of techniques for the policy, which includes community forums and in the consultation, public meetings.
Thank you, Councillor Gaffney. Councillor Horn, would you like to speak as seconder?
I reserve my right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd.
I think it'd be great for us to go to Waggunya and speak to the community there.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Croucher, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I'd like to endorse the opportunity to hold a community forum in Waggunya to not only meet with the people, but also discuss any concerns that they may have.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? But before I go back to Councillor Horn, I'd just like to echo that I hope this is exactly how our process can work, that when a community feels as though there are enough issues within the community to warrant holding a forum, that we would respond appropriately. And I think that would be the sentiment here tonight. Councillor Horn, would you like to speak as seconder as you reserved your right?
Thank you. I certainly wish to support the intention of this motion. However, as there are so many important questions to tease out, I wish the matter to be considered from a broader Shire-wide perspective. Firstly, I'm questioning why this motion is necessary. How come we are in this position? How have we arrived at this point? Are community expectations for access to public meetings reasonable? And if so, is it acceptable to defer such a forum until after the next council elections in November 2024? Additionally, why, despite the consistently well-constructed, respectful and cohesive representations made by the membership of the Waggunya Progress Association, do their queries remain unresolved? And perhaps most importantly, why is it necessary for this group to have to rely on their long-standing relationship with Councillor Gaffney and his preparedness to act on their behalf to meet their simple request to have a meeting? I can't help but wonder at the likelihood of less experienced community members having a similar opportunity. As referenced by our Deputy Mayor, we have now received the 2023 community satisfaction results. They are the worst ever. There is more than a decade of data in this performance statement that demonstrates very clearly that what we are doing is ineffective. In fact, if this were a private enterprise and 50% of our customers were unhappy, we would not have a business and we'd certainly be looking for a new CEO. We have got to get better at complying with our words and our promises, to inform, to listen, acknowledge and provide feedback. Councillors, we are not here for the convenience of this organisation. We are here to test and serve the best interest of our communities. Community involvement is our principal stated value, and by supporting this motion, we are taking a valuable step towards honouring our commitments to deliver the services our communities want in a deliberative, inclusive and timely manner. Thank you.
Councillor Horn, I'd like to take issue with part of what you've just said. I think it's highly inappropriate to suggest that we would be looking for a new CEO had we been a private organisation. The fact that you suggest that 50% of the customer base is unhappy with us when this is a survey of 400 individuals within the Shire grossly over-exaggerates that is a reflection of the CEO. And I think that is an appalling assertion to make in this meeting.
Well, I'm sorry that you feel that way, but in private enterprise, that is the situation.
This is
that I
not private
think
enterprise.
we
You
are
are in
not-
local government. The survey was of 400 constituents. I'm highly offended by the comment that you make, and I would like you to apologise to the CEO for that.
It's not directed to the CEO.
That's exactly how it was to be reflected, Councillor Horn.
It's directed to private, all those people out there in private
I
business.
think you should be appalled at that comment.
I apologise.
Councillor Gaffney, I'll go back to you as the mover to sum up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like just to say that when I put this notice of motion forward, the CEO was supportive of it. And I'd like to thank you, Madam Mayor, for your support tonight.
I'm going to put the motion, and I'm going to expect that there's full support in this room. And I think that's exactly what we'll see to be reflected. So I'll put the motion that we hold a community forum to speak to our constituents in Waganya. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Item 16 is councillors' report. Do any of the councillors wish to make a report to the council meeting? Item 16.1 is the Mayor's Diary for information. Item 17 is the Decisions Register for information. And item 18 is general business. Do any of councillors have any general business? Councillor Tyson.
Thank you. I'm just sort of aware that we're moving into our next storm season. And I'd like to refer to some of the at least one recommendation out of the 20, where it said that for communities need to build their resilience. Now, resilience comes from being informed and prepared. And I'd request that through the CEO, we be able to liaise with our emergency services and organise some information sessions in one or two of our towns, preferably Rutherglen and perhaps Yakandanda, and talk about what measures we can do to make ourselves more resilient and prepared so that when we have these storms, whether it be floods, fire, we've got the information at the start rather than at the end. I would like to note that Kate O'Toole has been doing a lot of work with Karen Van Heusen, who's an Indigo Valley resident, about organising a pamphlet and a flyer which talks about the next 72. So what happens in the 72 hours immediately after something has happened? And I think that would be a great opportunity for them to release it to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. CEO, did you want to respond to that request in general business?
I think, yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, Councillor. Good idea. It's not, the information itself is not something we would issue and promote. Obviously, each of these agencies have their own communications strategies and plans and messages that they would want to put out ahead of the season. But I'm certainly happy to take on board the suggestion that we try to encourage or host or in some way, shape or form, invite those agencies to get out to the community as early as possible. So we'll look to see what we can organise in that regard. So happy to look at that.
Anything further, Councillor Tyson?
Yeah, thank you very much for your assistance.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. Do any other councillors have any items for general business? Councillor Shepherd.
Can I just speak to that point? I know it's not our voice that talks on the season coming up, but it's the community looks to us for guidance, whether it's our role or not. I know it's the CFA and the police are part of our discussion, and they're in charge of course, the emergency response. But there's something that every year I raise this, that there's something that we need to do as a council to own the discussion around our fire seasons. And I know it's a difficult space because it's not our responsibility legally, but I still do think we need to have the discussion at some stage around how we as leaders within the Indigo Shire assist in this important discussion and message that needs to go out to the community. And I don't have a solution in that. I just have, we need to talk about it.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. And I think as we move towards this summer and with our staff and others engaging with different areas of the MEMC, upcoming briefings with some of the emergency response authorities, we can continue to think about that and to look to other councils to see how they might do exactly what you're talking about. So thank you for raising it. Do any other councillors have any general business? If not, I declare the meeting closed at 7:20 p.m. with the next scheduled council meeting for Tuesday, the 26th of September, 2023 at 6:30 p.m.